Hi, in this video I want to demystify some of the questions I get when installing the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, specifically about security and personal data protection. I'm Andres Vierge, a Power Platform consultant and developer working in my own company, BTB Consulting. And if you have any question for you or your team, please get in contact with us via my website directly or our company website. And now let's get to the video. Now, these are the four questions that I get asked the most about security and data protection. First would be whether we need the Center of Excellence Starter Kit service account, the one that we use to install the kit, to always have permission and a global role for whether it's global admin or Power Platform admin. Then if we really need to have the service account full access to all environments, what about then tenant audit logs and the concerns related to personal data? And what do we do when we have Azure PIM, Privileged Access Management, and if we really need to make an exception for this account? Let's start with number one. So do we really need the service account that we use to install the Center of Excellence to be a global admin or a Power Platform admin? And the short answer is no, just at installation time. So why is that? Well, when we install the Center of Excellence Starter Kit, we wanted to, at first, create an inventory of all the components available in the tenant, all the apps, flows, solutions, AI, builder models, etc. that there are. Now, to do that, we need access inside an environment, not at global Power Platform Admin Center. Let me show you what I mean for that. So when we go to to the Power Platform Admin Center, in order to see all the environments that are here and do any configuration about capacity and all that, we need, yes, Power Platform admin security role at global level. But then if we go to a particular environment and we want to manage any settings here, or assign security roles to users, or, which is the important thing, see the data inside, which means also the apps, flows, etc. We need a role inside the environment that allows us to access that data. Normally, we would recommend the system administrator security role inside the environment, which would be the analogy to an owner in a SharePoint site. Now, going back to the slides, as a summary then, we need just at first, at installation time, to be able to access the platform with the service account as an admin, as a global admin, whether it's a global admin, which is too much, or Power Platform admin role, which would be the recommended role. But then we don't need it because we just have to escalate our permissions inside each environment. But then what about new environments? Well, new environments need to be taken into account, and because a proper governance framework would have a procedure to handle the creation of new environments. In that procedure, we need to include the service account, have it into account, and we need to include it in the process to give it access as a system administrator or the proper security role that we create to be able to read information in each environment. And now also be aware of the security groups that you use to guardrail environments. Here in this picture, you can see that we are using for a different environment a security group. That means that if you are not in this security group, you cannot access the environment. So you would see it from, let's say, the Power Platform Admin Center if you have the global role, but in order to see the data inside, you need to be in the security group, included as a member in the security group. So when we do environment strategy and we decide if or in which environments we want to use security groups, we need to take that into account as well when we build the security groups, maybe with dynamic membership. We can talk about that in a different video, and include the service account into those groups so that we can access the data. All right, myth number two, the service account needs to have full access to every environment. Well, I just in the previous point made the statement that we should give the service account system administrator, which is the most elevated privilege in every environment in order to do inventory. Well, that's not 100% accurate. So why do we recommend the system administrator security role? Because we not only need to do inventory, but we also have to manage some resources as part of the governance framework. For example, what happens to orphan resources? A person leaves the organization and leaves a lot of photos and apps hanging in there, and we need to reassign it to a different owner so that they don't stop working. Where we'll need privilege, enough privilege to do that, and that is done by assigning the system administrator security role to the service account. So again, if we define the governance framework and we have to define also the procedures that we're going to do as a global admin team, one of them would be to manage orphan resources. If we do that, well, we will need enough privileges inside each environment to do that. But if we define that we can only do inventory and we're not going to do those tasks, which would be weird, but what we could do is create a specific security role, a custom security role in each environment, assign it to the service account, and give only access to certain tables so that we can read the tables and the data necessary to do inventory. In a nutshell, the CoE Starter Kit is exactly that, a starter kit. So some tools that are already there for us. It's kind of an accelerator that we can customize to our needs. And in fact, that would be the recommended approach. You install this interface and starter kit, you use only what you need and customize in order to implement your governance procedures. But in the end, we are doing IT, we are managing infrastructure, and what we don't want the Power Platform to be is like those old horror stories that we've seen with IBM Lotus Notes, for example, where Shadow IT was really present. Shadow IT is basically the proliferation of silos and unknown data or workflow assets, any IT component that is hanging there, and we don't have control, and most importantly, we don't have visibility as global IT. What we want to have is full visibility of what's going on in the tenant and then identify any risks, whether it's security, data, or operational disruptions. So as IT, it's completely normal that some people have enough privilege with certain secured service accounts to access any devices, SharePoint sites, but also Power Platform environments. Otherwise, we won't be able to do our job. Okay, then let's debunk myth number 3, audit logs and personal data concerns. Well, let's start by understanding what is included in this interface and starter kit. So this is what we extract from the zip that you are going to download when you want to install this interface and starter kit. And here we have lots of resources. So these that you see with the managed ending are the solutions, Power Platform solutions that you have to import into the environment of choice to install the Center of Excellence. But as you can see here, we don't need all of them. We just need the core components to do the most important task of the Center of Excellence, which is doing inventory. The rest of them are not necessary. So, and especially the audit components, which is the one that worries you about getting access to certain audit information. So we only need, let's begin with the core components solution, this one in the bottom, to do inventory. And inventory is crucial for governance. Why? Because if we don't do inventory, we cannot make an assessment of what's the status of the whole tenant, which flows and apps exist, but more importantly, what are people automating and building applications for? Is it for integrating with the ERP, the CRM? What use cases are they building? And most importantly, what connectors are they using so that we understand if we have any security breaches or potential risk, etc. Now, if we don't have an inventory of the components across all the tenant, we can have that information. And if we don't have that information and we cannot build a report, an assessment report, then we cannot do strategy. We cannot start even thinking about what the environment strategy is going to look like, the DLP policies that we want to include, what are the citizen developers going to do, etc. All that stuff comes after we do an assessment, and we need to do inventory for that. What is inventory? Well, if we go to, this would be one of the most important apps in the core component solution. So when we install the core component solution, we have this Power Platform admin view application, and here we have an overview of all the apps, flows, connectors, etc. that are used in all the tenant. And if we think about personal data, for example, well, this is what this interface gathers about any user, any maker, people who are creating flows. Well, their name, their UPN, their email address, who is the manager, and other details that anybody can see, even from Microsoft Teams. And if you want to ask what's the minimal setup that I would recommend that you only install the core components solution, which allows you to do inventory. And in fact, if we go to my own Center of Excellence installation, you'll see that I only have the core components, and this one over here, the governance components, I wouldn't recommend. I just install it for assessing whether what is included here is actually useful, and specifically for the orphan resources and abandoned resources process that is included here, and it's just an accelerator that really is not that it's not that good. I actually build I should shot another video on my channel to talk specifically about that. Now, to finalize uh, this myth, um, so basically we don't need to install all the components included in the starter kit. Only the core components is necessary for inventory. We need inventory to do governance because we cannot do strategy if we don't have an assessment of what is the status, the current status of the platform. And finally, audit logs. Well, you saw that the personal data is not an issue if we just do inventory and we don't install the other solutions. And about audit logs, well, these what we need to distinguish what is audit logs in terms of Power Platform and what we would put in the Microsoft Peer View bucket, which is real logs about what everything that's happening in the tenant. We don't need that information. What are audit logs in the Power Platform? If we go to an environment, you will see these trace logs, which are logs performed by for example, when a user imports or exports or publishes a solution, you will get logs here that this operation has happened. And any plugins that you may create, which is backend code, or for example, if we have other kind of logs are when you configure that you want Dataverse automatically to track what changes happen to a particular column in a table. So who changed the value of the column, for example, name from this to that kind of information. But that's not something to be worried about. Last myth then, Azure PIM. Do we really need to make an exception for the service account and give it permanent global rights for a platform admin role? Well, if you've been paying attention to the previous topics, you already have the answer, and the answer is no. We only need the global role at installation time. After that, if we follow a proper procedure and take the service account into account, we just need to include the account as member of each environment and have enough permissions there in order for the inventory and other actions of the core component solution in the Center of Excellence Starter Kit to work. Now, you have more in-depth analysis and information about that and how to actually implement that in the video above. Please check it out. But last point would be if you really are concerned about securing the Center of Excellence service account, well, just as with any other service account that has those privileges in the tenant, team up with the identity and security teams. You need to protect the service account, of course. How? Well, best practices could be MFA, multi-factor authentication, or conditional access policies, and ensure that you can only log in from certain VPN locations, etc. If we do that, we are going to, ensure that nobody else can access the service account, everything's secured, and we don't have more than the needed permissions. And with that, thank you for watching till the end. I'll see you in the next video. Please let me know in the comments what are your thoughts, if you have any more questions on the topic, and be sure to contact me directly if you need help for your team. With that, again, see you in the next video, and